Good afternoon. Welcome to Navigating Tariff Uncertainty, Building Resilient Supply Chains. I'm your host, Stephen Taggart, a member of Ryerson Advanced Processing's Business Development Office. Tariffs, supply chain disruptions, global tensions. Man, these are interesting times for all us manufacturers. Raise your hand if you're being affected now.
We all raised our hands.
Of us. It's a lot of us, and I guess that's why we're here. Reshoring is a hot topic, not just asking what's the price, but where's it coming from, and will it arrive on time? Well, I got great news. Ryerson is uniquely qualified to support even the most complex supply chain challenges. We have huge on-hand metal inventories, supply chain ownership from PO placement to delivered finished goods, an extensive manufacturing network, oxy, plasma, laser, form, bend, machine, weld, and so on. Anything you need, we have the processes to support. What that means to you is also redundancy of machine and ability to flex capacity to meet your changing needs. While it's a very challenging time, we have a great opportunity to build supply chains that mitigate risk and take advantage of Ryerson's scope and scale. Thanks for joining us today. Here are some housekeeping notes. This is being recorded and will be available on Ryerson channel. At any time, feel free to ask questions through the chat function. If we can't answer live, we'll get back to you. Now it's time for the stars of the show. Let's walk through 3 real-world success stories to illustrate Ryerson Advanced Processing's ability to offer dynamic supply chain solutions. Introducing Mike Nauman, General Manager of Ryerson Advanced Processing East. Mike, it's all yours.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Steve. Great intro. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody out there. My name is Mike Nauman, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm the General Manager of our Ryerson Advanced Processing division for the eastern half of the U.S. and all of Canada. So as you can probably imagine, I've been involved, especially for the last 4 months, I've been involved in some very interesting supply chain related conversations, scenarios, discussions, debates, whatever you might want to call it. But Canada in particular has been an interesting dialogue. But today I'm going to tell you about one specific customer collaboration. And in reality, that's what this conversation is really all about today. We are collaborators with our customers. It's a group effort. A lot of different voices adding ideas and opinions to the dialogue. So let me tell you about this one example and open to questions after. We have a customer in the northeastern United States. He's a mid-sized contract manufacturer who in turn is supporting a large OEM tied into the automotive industry. The OEM has mandated a US-based supply chain. Historically, this customer has been buying from India and Mexico, like a lot of our customers that have global supply chains. So as collaborators, we assisted them in reinventing their domestic supply chain, or a lot of people call it nearshoring, and it's kept us very busy of late. As a side note, we have seen, and today we're going to discuss more similar scenarios where customers wanted a blended source of supply to ensure product availability, but still competitive costing. This specific application that I'm talking about is a fabricated bollard or a security structure used to protect electric charging stations. It consists of precision saw cut tubing, laser cut plate, welding, and galvanizing. It's a complete fabricated assembly. Everything is sourced and fabricated in the Northeast with an anticipated volume of 10,000 units annually. And speed to market and cost stability were the 2 main drivers for this application. So this is what, I'll go off script. This is the fun part for our Ryerson Advanced Processing world. So many unique opportunities to add value and to collaborate. And we're looking forward to doing that with you. Steve, I'll turn it back over to you.
That's a great case study, Mike. Ryerson's ability to tailor a supply chain is second to none. Oh, we have a question from the field. What's one practical action a manufacturer can take today to prepare for tariff-related disruptions, even if they aren't feeling the impact yet?
So, Steve, I'll jump in on this since we were just kind of talking, going down that road. I think the key word in that question, thank you for that question, is how do you prepare? Preparation. So we talk a lot about diversification. We talk about replicating supply chains to solve customer-related challenges. And my guys give me a hard time all the time. I like to use the term flex capacity because when you have the ability to truly flex your capacity, then you're basically offering a really good value proposition. So I'd say preparation is the key word there, Steve.
Hey, Mike,
Thanks,
can
Mike.
I add to that just a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
The other thing is that being able to flex the capacity and that redundancy is also keeping them active, because you're starting cold, like picture coming off the bench. I mean, if you're warmed up, you're ready to run the sprint. So keeping those suppliers and those alternative supply chains active, even if it's at a reduced volume, would be another one.
That's a good point.
We have another question. Do you have most fabrication processes available in all locations?
Porter, you want to take that one?
Sure, I'll take that one. I think when it comes to first stage processing, I think that answer would be a solid yes. And by first stage, we're talking plasma cutting, saw cutting, oxyfuel cutting. After that, we have numerous locations that have a lot more processing. In other words, we go to second stage, third stage, even full welding. So I think it depends on your geography. We've been very strategic in acquisitions, plus what assets we put in what facilities to cover the entire North American gambit. We also have a vendor network, which is very large, and we're trying to put all that together to be your redundant supply chain, where you don't feel like you have to start from scratch or guess or reach out, just locally to try to keep that supply chain as redundant and solid as it can be. So we have, for example, in plasma tables, for example, I know we have over 100 in the company. So we're very well covered in North America for any of those processes you're going to need.
Thanks, James. Remember, continue to ask any questions you'd like so you guys can get the most value out of this. Introducing Jeff Pitzenberger, General Manager of Ryerson Advanced Processing North. Jeff, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Steve. So I manage the northern portion of the United States, heading a little bit into the south, and my teams, they like to generate very unique and creative supply chains that help our customers. So today, I get to tell you a short story about growth and redundancy. So something we all hope to experience and possibly have over time. So we've got an emergency vehicle manufacturer. In my geography, they make some very, very large weldments. And I'll try to paint the picture here. Like each one of these weldments weighs about 20,000 pounds. It's comprised of some heavy plate products, light plate products, and some very large cross sections of carbon tubing. And as far as processing goes, we're spanning the gamut here with plasma, laser, machine, weld, and paint. So they're a pretty cosmetic product as well, if you could imagine, in the emergency vehicle industry. So this customer had a need for 5 units of this large weldment on a monthly basis. Now Ryerson currently makes 2 of those 5. And that's because we were at capacity. When they brought us on board, they had another supplier that would make 3. So over time, the competitor that was making 3 started to experience both quality and capacity or delivery issues for any myriad of reasons, whether it's staffing, whether it's raw materials. They were experiencing some delivery problems. So the customer has a growth plan to go from those 5 units, which is Ryerson and competitor combined, to get to that 6 units per month capacity to increase their throughput. And they asked us to step in, number 1, to take over the 3 units from the supplier that was our competitor. And number 2, increase the output to 4 units a month. So that is exactly what we did. We were able to step in and leverage the added capacity because of our redundant assets across our 100 plus locations across the United States and address a growth need while also ensuring a very quality product was delivered here. So the message here that I'm going to get across is having the ability to flex your capacity, as Mike put, move production around the facilities that have more availability was really a great thing for us, and we were able to deliver in a growth environment, which is critical. I'm sure we've all been in a situation where we've taken on more than we could possibly handle, bitten off more than we could chew. So redundancy is the key word here that we're talking about for your ever-ready supply chain. And with that, I'll open the floor to any questions before I pass it back to Steve Taggart.
What are some practical tips? Sorry, from the group. What are some practical tips for evaluating redundancy?
So I'll take that one first. So in any critical process, obviously, if there's less of it, that's where you want to start first. So if you know for a fact there's only a couple of a certain asset across your organization, having that redundancy plan, whether it be an internal option at another location or even looking outward externally, that's number one where you would look first, because everything else that's commoditized. Lasers are fairly commoditized, but maybe large format size lasers are not. They're much less available in the marketplace. That's where I would key in, and then from there cascade it further into the next lower processes that might be either not locally geographized, or maybe they're more prevalent and you don't have to worry about them as much.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll jump
Thanks,
in
Jeff.
there.
Okay, James.
I'll discuss it a little bit on my slides, but on the current slide, you'll see plasma cut, laser cut, machine, paint, weld. And to me, the most practical thing to do is look at your internal assets. Are you close to capacity or over capacity on any of your processing hours per machine? In other words, if you're running your laser 45 hours a week with OT, then that's probably your stress point. And that would be a first stage process we have at numerous locations. And my advice would be pick 25% of your volume and have Ryerson quote it. And see if we can get where you need to get to have an automatic redundancy already set up. If we're running even 10% of the part numbers, we've already done first articles, we've PPAP'd it, we have programs. And I think having at least a small amount of your volume somewhere safe, in other words, it's in the US, we don't have the supply chain interruptions we're seeing around the world, and it's sort of the easy button. And I see another question here where, what are your offshore sources for materials, and what would happen if one or more became unavailable? And that sort of ties together. Ryerson buys from every mill in the world. We have access to any of them in any country to bring in as needed. So if we had a foreign interruption, we would just simply shift to our US mill sources, and most likely, unless it's a very customer specific material or a super odd grade, we probably have it on the floor at any number of our locations. We would simply move that, get to cutting parts for you, and deliver it in a much shorter turnaround than you would have if, again, didn't have a redundant plan already, which ties back to the previous question, which is take a look at your supply chain and pressure test it.
Thanks, James. Keep the questions coming when you have the opportunity. Now, James, you already had the floor. You get it again. Introducing James Porter, General Manager of Ryerson Advanced Processing West.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm also over in Mexico, so I'm pretty passionate about this topic when it comes to redundancy and being able to use a foreign source that right now is currently tariff-free. Let me start with that. You'll see cross-border production. Currently, if you're using U.S. material, and Ryerson has, I'll call it 4.5 branches, as one is a warehouse shipping location in Mexico. And 90% of the metal that is kept at our Mexico facilities is U.S. And we have trucks going back and forth across the border every day. So we have the ability to use Mexican labor, okay, which is a lower labor rate than the U.S., on U.S. material. And as long as you're fabricating it in Mexico and you're not sending it back into the U.S. as a raw commodity, there is no tariff. So let me repeat. If you ask Ryerson to quote a part with Mexican labor that uses American material that is Ryerson in Mexico and coming back out, there will be no additional tariff whatsoever, okay? So I just wanted to preface that with my story. So we have a manufacturer in the Northeast that landed a new job for battery storage containers in the Southwest. And that order came quickly for them, and they're trying to get up and running in a new facility. So they asked us if we could quote 500 part numbers, and it varies with all the different requirements you see on the screen. Tube laser, flat bar, sheet, aluminum, stainless, carbon, and every metal processing you can think of. Laser, tube laser, flat laser, plasma, form, weld, the whole 9 yards. So this ties to some of the questions we saw earlier is what fabrication processes are available. In a case like this, it's less about where the locations are at and more about how many do we have and how much internal redundancy do we use. So this supply chain was 14 locations we used to pull this off in a 2-month time frame. And what that does is it builds in redundancy for you immediately. So you may hear us talk a lot about, well, if you just have one laser and one operator, then you need redundancy. So when we are a one-stop shop, we have that built in. It's the same thing with if you have a robust purchasing department. Let's say you have 4 or 5 people and they're chasing numerous vendors. Our model is to make it where you don't have to chase all of that. We will explain our supply chain, how many locations we're using, how many different process machines we're using, and then all of that goes together to create a very redundant and pressure-tested supply chain that we can also use Mexican labor to help offset any of your current foreign inbound fabrication parts that maybe are having issues or tariffs are impacted, or simply, again, just a 10 or 15% move to a supplier that has our qualifications and understands your quality and on-time delivery, just so you have redundancy, even if you're only US. So this is just a very high-level example that we can deal in volume just as much as we can deal in the other 2 examples, which were a specific ask from a customer or specific size. So I just wanted to show this to say it's East Coast, West Coast, and a foreign country, and we can handle any of those. So I hope that maybe after this call, you contact us or any of your local Ryerson sales reps and have that conversation about getting a quote. Mike, he and I were talking about how to keep this fun. They pay us to do something over here, guys, and that's the quote. Okay, so don't feel like, well, I don't want you guys just to quote it. And I understand some of that. But if you're going to test your supply chain and we're going to be the vendor and the division within Ryerson that we're stating on this call, we're ready to do your quote. We look forward to seeing it. And I really appreciate everybody being on this call and listening to us, as we really do want to help. I know everybody has a job, but we actually do like our jobs, maybe except I'm not sure about Taggart sometimes, but we like ours.
Thanks, man.
And we'll be glad to help. So I appreciate you guys' time today.
Thanks, James. That's a great example of leveraging Ryerson's scope and scale across all of North America. We've got some questions coming in. How can Ryerson help me reduce in-house strain on labor? That is still an issue for us.
So,
go ahead, James, and then I'll jump in after you. Go ahead.
It comes down to, the specific process. So if you identify that process to us, and let's say it's as simple as saw cutting. Hey, can you guys do some additional saw cutting for me? If we know the part numbers in your usage per month, we'll be glad to quote it on a per month basis. So you have consistent hours taken out of your schedule. If it's as simple as I don't have enough hours. Now, if it's more complicated and you can't find the manpower to grow, or somebody calls in or they quit or life happens, if it's any of our processes, and I would ask everybody to go to RyersonAdvancedProcessing.com. It has all of our processes, which are basically any of them you can name for metal, and we'll be glad to quote those. So we have the labor, we have the locations, we have the capacity. We just need to know how to plug in to the specific process or raw material issue you're having, and we can absolutely help with that labor constraint.
Yeah, James, what I was going to add to that is we still, even though we're multiple years past COVID, we still talk about labor, right?
Sure.
The human element of getting product manufactured. And it is still an issue. And one of the things that, one of the value propositions that Ryerson can help our customers with is what we call the Ryerson Advanced Processing outside service provider network. And we'll get back to, for the third time, we'll get back to that flex capacity term. So we're either we're going to use our internal assets or partner assets to get your product manufactured. The ability to move and be redundant, as James was talking about, allows us to help with that human strain on the manpower availability.
Thanks, Mike and James. Got some great questions coming in right now. Any suggestions on best practices on how to evaluate supplier performance and reliability?
Oh, that's a really good question. So we actually have a form, and we have supplier quality engineers on our staff within our division. And whether that's you asking us, what should you do, or / what should we do, I'll describe what we do as an example. So we visit any supplier that is not Ryerson owned, and we do have over 500. And it's a very simple strategy that led us to having that many suppliers that are not our 100 plus internal plants. And that is, we deliver metal to them. We're there every day anyway. And Ryerson's the oldest metals company in North America, over 180 years old. So they know who we are, we know who they are, and our trucks are there. So that model allows us to be in a lot of shops and see a lot of things. So we have a quality standards. We have different quality grades. In other words, are they just using, tape measures and calipers? Do they have an actual CMM? Do they have a full-fledged quality department? And they do CPKs? So we have all of that lined out for not only our external branches, but also our internal branches who have numerous quality techs on staff. So suggestions on best practices, if you're not talking Ryerson specific, on quality is I would ask to see their quality department and have them show you the actual tools they're using to measure. Okay, and make sure you see them. As far as supplier performance and reliability, the performance, I'm assuming we're talking OTD. Okay, and I think that I would ask detailed questions about how many shifts do you have on the process that you're buying from that supplier. Are you running 1 shift, 2 shifts? How many operators do you have? That's going to give you an indication on the front end of how much capacity they have to ship to. And if they don't have a lot, then you may have some OTD issues. And reliability, I think, ties to quality. But I think that's a very good question. And I hope that answered it. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, James. That's a great answer. More coming in from the floor. I didn't realize that Ryerson did advanced processing, which means that we obviously haven't marketed ourselves well enough. But I'm glad we're having this conversation now and you're hearing us today. But has it evolved over the years?
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
You
want to go first, Mike?
No, go ahead, Pitts.
I got a ton to say on this one, so I'll try not to take all the.
Yeah, don't take all the juicy stuff. All right.
What has happened over the last couple of years? We'll just leave it at a couple because a lot more has happened in the last few years. I'm just looking at the most recent pieces of Ryerson history with the addition of LaserFlex North, LaserFlex South, Norland in Schofield, Wisconsin, Excelsior in Fresno, Texas Steel Processing, Apogee. I could keep going. These are fabrication companies that Ryerson has invested in, and what's really changed for us is, when we acquire a company like these fabrication companies, they don't become just a part of the portfolio. They become part of Ryerson. We become sales representatives of that organization. They become fabricators of our metal. And it's really become a synergistic situation. Now, you can say, in many regards, some of our competitors, they do something similar, but they just operate independently. And what Ryerson does is really take it into the family of companies. That's what we refer to it as a family of companies. That's exactly how we operate. And in addition to that, some of the latest and greatest technology, I think we talked about, there's still labor constraints. We just put a very specialized factory in Portage, Indiana, that pretty much automates raw material handling, laser cutting, transitioning of the parts from the laser to the press brake with automatic part handling to form the part and package the part. So we can pretty much run lights out with nobody watching. The quality is validated by a laser scanning system. So we're really talking about real technological advancement here in the absence of trying to put resources in place where we may or may not have a hard time with the labor pool in that market. We've circumvented that by essentially, not saying we don't need people, but in very select spots, we can decide whether we want to run lights out day and night, all day, every day.
Hey, Jeff, let me give a couple real life examples. I was traveling in Buffalo the first part of this week. We had two customers that came in to visit us at our facility outside of Buffalo. And the first visitors were from Sweden. So obviously not really knowing the US market and what was available from a processing point of view at Ryerson. So we went through we detailed out what capabilities we have both internally and through the OSP network. And it was amazing the questions that it prompted. It was supposed to be an hour-long meeting and turned into a 3-hour-long meeting. The second visitor, this is really interesting. I think the second visitor was from Rochester, New York, longtime customer. They have a tube laser, they have flat lasers, and they thought of Ryerson more for just basic raw material, what we call general line product. And turns out after some conversation about capabilities, tube laser capability within Ryerson, flat lasers, Jeff, within our family of companies, they outsource. And we have a lot of customers that have the assets, but it comes back to the 2 C's, capacity and capability. And there's just a lot of opportunities to build supply chains, even if you have internal assets that might be pushed to the limit right now. Anyway, Steve, I'll turn it back over to you.
Oh, great. Man, the questions are coming in. I'm glad that we're having this type of conversation to talk about what Ryerson can offer, but also the problems you guys are facing out there so we can face them together. What are customers telling you right now? Are many reworking supply chains proactively? Should they be?
Yeah, that's a good question. Customers, I guess, what are they telling us? They're concerned about cost. That's the first thing. And right after that, whenever they start to research, well, how am I going to get processing hours and where am I going to get them from? And I noticed there's a couple other questions that tie to this that have been asked. One is, somebody struggled with quality parts from outside suppliers. How do we manage it, right? Does Ryerson help manage the supply chain or just build? So let me answer all 3 of those at once. We manage the supply chain 100%, okay? It's our trucks, it's our quality process, it's our quality engineers, it's our salespeople, and we implement our quality program with any vendor that we use. So whether it's internal or external, if you're having issues with any of those aspects, my advice would be whatever your internal quality standards are, you need to implement those with whoever you're going to buy from, or at least make sure they match, meet, or can get to that level. So we manage all those things at the same time to ensure. So it is a one-stop shop. You'd have one contact in sales, and we manage the supply chain no matter how complex it is, and you get your parts delivered to your door in a Ryerson truck. I know that sounds maybe salesman-y, and I'm just over here talking. It's the truth. That's the entire model of the division. And Ryerson's been doing fab for, 60 or 70 years. It's just that the customers, because there was a question on what are the customers telling you? The customers over the past 20 years have demanded more from us, and we have really tried to listen. So therefore, we established a division, which we are all part of, Ryerson Advanced Processing, about 10 years ago. Even though we always had fab, our CEO, Eddie Lehner, wanted it to be a standalone unit that could focus on the needs that we're discussing on this call.
Hey, thanks, James. And I'll add one other thing in there too. Ryerson does own the supply chain from start to finish. PO placed with Ryerson. We manage the supply chain all the way to delivered to your door. But we also are completely transparent with the supply chain. So if you choose and want to audit the facilities or have complete visibility, we are transparent so everybody knows what part of the process is being done where, and we can work together on the quality requirements, delivery requirements, and work together to make sure that you know exactly what's happening and we're meeting exactly what you're requesting. So it is not some sort of strange, you place it and have no idea what's coming until it arrives. If you have a quality team or supplier quality engineers that want to come in and audit, that's completely available to you. And we help facilitate that with our team and your team.
Excellent. Stephen, I'm seeing one about our website. They asked, how can we see the family of companies? If you go to supply chain under RyersonAdvancedProcessing.com and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a light blue bar, and you'll see Apogee, Excelsior, Finello, Guy Metals, Laserflex. That's probably less than half of them, but you'll be able to click through and it goes directly to their websites. That's a good question. I appreciate that one.
And at the end of this, we'll have some QR codes and have the links and information listed, so you'll be able to find it.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
I saw a question pop up about Canada also, which I'm responsible for. Really no different than what you've been hearing. But with Canada, it's really been in the last probably 8 years that we really started investing in assets, flat laser, press brakes, plasmas, tube lasers, and mainly in the eastern half of Canada. But we have significantly expanded our OSP, our outside service provider network also. And to kind of tag on to what Steve was just saying, so these, and I saw a question about that too, we're fully transparent with the OSPs also. They're fully audited and approved partners that really are partners of ours. And if they are part of our supply chain, then you and your team, your engineering group, your quality, everybody is invited to audit, approve these sources that we utilize. We already have, but it's fully transparent. So anyway, getting back to Canada, they have invested quite a bit, especially in Quebec and Ontario.
Thanks, Mike. There's a couple of questions here. I'm going to try to pull them into one. We have struggled with quality parts from outside suppliers. What measures do you put in place to ensure quality and or fix issues? And that is aligned with a question about what do you do if a vendor is underperforming? And I think James just answered most of that. But just want to say that with the amount of redundancy and options that we have, if there is an underperforming supplier, then we do have options to go and make that change if we can't get them to the level of execution that we need. And that's the beauty and the strength and power of the Ryerson Advanced Processing Network, to be able to find those redundancy in machine and additional options to support.
And let me give a specific answer on managing quality. So let's talk worst case. You're using Ryerson, we manage the supply chain, there's a quality issue. Whether it's internal Ryerson facility, whether it's an acquisition, or whether it's an outside service provider. We have, and you guys can look it up, it's creaform3d.com, okay? We have a Creaform 3D laser scanner, and we actually own multiple sites, but we also have a mobile unit that will fit in a suitcase that our supplier engineers literally take on a plane, and we go inspect parts live, okay? So it makes us very agile to ensure that no matter where we're producing it, that we will have an engineer use your solid model or DXF that we turn into a solid model, whatever it takes, that we'll send people out on site to inspect. So that's worst case, but that's how we manage it. And I thought that was a good time.
Hey, James, and you know, it's interesting you bring that up because with the expectations and the quality requirements getting more stringent from our end customers, the MetraScan technology, a lot of customers are not familiar with that. So I was just asked this week from my 2 customers in Buffalo, tell me about it. I want to contact them. How much does it cost? Because literally that's the most recent updated technology for inspecting parts.
Yeah, you want to talk about inspecting fast?
Yeah,
this technology that, you know, obviously James mentioned, it's pretty mobile, puts us in a position where if we have a supplier that's not performing, we're able to evaluate and figure out what needs to be done, just like anybody would do with problem resolution, and get it done fast.
Thanks, Jeff. James, I've got a question that is tailored for you. I feel, this is your. I purchased metal in the U.S., but want to fabricate it in Mexico and then return to the States. How does that tariff dynamic work?
So there's no tariff. Now, if you're using us entirely, because if you have time, you can look up maquiladora. That's sort of the term for a company in the US that also has the same company or an extension or a branch in Mexico. So we are that. In other words, Ryerson has that certification or term in Mexico. So if you need Ryerson to supply you material, we have it in the US. We will take it into Mexico. We will fabricate it and we will return it to you on a Ryerson truck delivered as parts. There's no tariff. Now, let me be specific. That is if the raw material it is either already at a Ryerson branch in Mexico and it's US material, or it's US material that we bring into Mexico. The current administration does not put a tariff on US material going in to use Mexican labor to fabricate parts. So we have to put some labor into it. In other words, I say we got to put a hole in it. Okay. You want to buy an 8-foot by 20-foot sheet from us? I got to put a hole in it to get it back from Mexico without a tariff. Otherwise, there is a tariff. So again, there's no tariff on fabricated goods coming out of Mexico through Ryerson if it using U.S. material. And I'd have to really look at it. Obviously, we can't use Chinese material, but there probably are some other countries that are not being hit by the current issues or administrative restraints. But again, 90% of our material is U.S. So we can go in and out of Mexico, no problem with fabricated parts.
Thanks, James. Got one good one here to end, or very close. When helping customers navigate tariffs, what is the single most effective adjustment you've seen to cut costs or reduce lead time without sacrificing material quality?
So I'll jump on this one too. So let me be real specific. So in Mexico, for example, and I know we're talking a lot about that, but it's the simplest one to get to. We do have branches there, and right now there's not a tariff. So single stage processing in Mexico is really not that much cheaper than the US, okay? To be real specific. What I mean by that is laser cutting parts in Tijuana or Monterrey is not really going to save you that much labor, because the lasers that we have in Mexico are the same lasers we have in the US. You still have to buy the same laser machine. So that segment of your cost, call it $120 an hour, is there no matter what. It's static. So even though you save a little on the operator, it's not a lot. So if you want to effectively use or try supply chain in Mexico, you need to go up to second, third, and fourth stage processing. Laser press brake, a weird turret part, but really if you can get all the way up to weld, okay? And it doesn't have to be like a big, huge, elaborate base for a vehicle. It can be a simple weld, 2 or 3 parts, okay? But if you get to welding, you can get some things done.
I'd like to add to that too. It's kind of taken in a little bit of direction, and it's more in the common sense area. So when you're talking about adjusting any supply chain, a lot of times people grab at things, and it's usually during a very critical, stressful time or a moment when you're potentially putting production in jeopardy. Use the sensibility of using trusted supply chains versus grabbing, right? You know, a new supplier came into the picture, just grab at it, and they came in with the cheapest option. So cheapest isn't always best. So trying something in a critical moment, you know, that could lead to more problems. So my advice here, not pitching Ryerson, is just using a trusted supply chain you know works.
Thanks, Jeff. We've got one final question here, and you all three get the opportunity to answer this. It's a great one. If you had to boil your advice down to one sentence, what's the key to navigating supply chain volatility in 2025 and beyond? And I'm not sure salespeople can do one sentence, but you guys can try your best.
Yeah,
That's fair.
So Mike Nauman's not going to be able to do that in one sentence, 100%, but I'll try. I'll go back to what I said. This is Mike Nauman's opinion earlier. It's all about preparation, understanding your supply chain. And I saw something else about how do we know if our suppliers are efficient or not. And replicating, it doesn't hurt to replicate what you have as your contingency plan. And I'll say one more thing. See, I couldn't do it in one sentence. Let us in your plants. We love getting in the plants. We'll collaborate with you and help you with your overall value proposition.
Sure.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll take that second. So my advice pretty simply would be stress your supply chain. In other words, or simply identify the parts that are most critical to your build and get some more quotes. Okay. And pick a percentage. If you need 100 parts a month, man, sub out 10. Okay. Because the real time lost whenever you have to react to a supply chain disruption, regardless, other than geography, is, well, now I have to get somebody and they have to reprogram all the machines. We're going to have to do first articles. That slows down everything every time, no matter what. So I would say stress your supply chain, pick the critical parts, have us or whoever you are using currently get a quote and have some parts done. And that way they know that they've got it covered.
See, James, you couldn't do it in one either. So let's see if Pitts can do it in one.
I'll try, but it ain't going to happen. I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what James did there, and I'm going to repeat myself, and it's going to be redundant because that's exactly what we're talking about is redundancy here. So me personally, I'm always in growth mode. Ryerson is always in growth mode. So how can we scale faster? We're at an inflection point right now in the marketplace where things could, maybe they won't, maybe they will, but maybe what if they just blow up and all of a sudden you've got unexpected demand that's pent up in the marketplace and it needs to be taken over. Are you prepared for it? So, what I would say is be prepared, and we always are in that regard, but be prepared for growth at any given moment. That's why we are prepared internally with our multiple locations. We've got external options. So my advice to you is be prepared for both internal growth and external growth in that regard. Keep those multiple supply chain options available and running.
Wow. Well, thanks, everybody. I tell you what, those are great answers. I'm really excited the great case studies from everybody on this panel, but also the questions. The questions are fantastic. I mean, it really got us to granularly dig into to more specifics with people on their supply chain and what Ryerson can do to help build and manage your supply chain from start to finish. I'm sure most of you guys on this webinar can relate to similar challenging situations in your business. Now, the great question is, what challenges are you facing? Ryerson has huge on-hand material inventories, extensive manufacturing network throughout North America, solutions tailored to meet your supply chain needs, whatever and wherever you require, and supply chain ownership from PO placement to finished goods delivery to the final destination. It's time to take advantage of what Ryerson Advanced Processing has to offer. There's no risk to getting a supply chain health check. Let's check out, see what you're doing, and no risk to you, and find out how can we help. And I'm sure with our expertise and national scope and scale, there are areas we can help improve your supply chain, deliver redundancy, and reduce risk for your organizations. So some more information and ways to reach out. You can go to RyersonAdvancedProcessing.com. James had talked about that. It's got a lot of information about our family of companies, as well as stories and things that keep you up to date on what Ryerson Advanced Processing is doing. You can visit Ryerson.com to see our complete inventory and other items. If you don't have a contact and you want to ask more questions, or you want to send us an RFQ, contact us at wrap@ryerson.com. And Cup of Joe, if you're not familiar with Cup of Joe, it's monthly insight analysis of what's moving the metals market from Ryerson's Director of Risk Management and Commodities Hedging. And so hit that QR code and you'll be able to access that. It's once a month.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, Nick's better than we are. Guys.
Yeah, no question about that. Well, thanks for joining us today. There's a lot of great discussion. I hope you guys got a lot out of the content and more understanding of what Ryerson Advanced Processing can do. Everybody who is registered for this webinar will get a supply chain resilience evaluation form. It'll allow you to dig into your supply chain, give yourself a health check and give yourself a score, and find out where there might be opportunities for you to improve. But thanks to everybody who joined. Thanks from Ryerson Advanced Processing, and we look forward to helping you guys move forward in this challenging supply chain era we're in right now.